Hey, thanks, Arush. It's absolutely fantastic having you here. You run this unbelievable online company called Just Herbs, and I know it's unbelievable because I've been using it for some time. And more importantly, I saw it in stores. I did not know that you guys were in stores. And when you see people from your own city do this in a very big way, it kind of really excites you because the online space is a different way of selling, and you're actually going to the stores and retail is a different way of selling. So, I mean, absolutely wonderful kind of start for you in the company. Let me start off by asking you a little about how this company started. What was the genesis? What the foundation of that whole thing? What is that and where is that?
Yeah. So look, I mean, when I started this in 2014, if you ask me, and then we sort of had a rebirth in 2018 when we received our first round of funds. But for those 4 years were, I think when I look back, those 4 years were the most exciting, right? And the most amount of learning happened then, because we were trying to see what is it, where are we going to sell this product? What is the product? How are we going to make this product? How are we even different? Do we even have a right to win? Do we even have a reason to exist in such a crowded market? So, the long story short, I used to work in, a private equity fund in Singapore. Typical, wear a tie every day, polish shoes, no check shirts, only plains, because you got to speak to, wealthy pension funds, and you need to know your stuff. I even did my CFA level 1. I tried CFA level 2. Tak I was like, I think it's enough to have a conversation now. Don't want to study more. Did that for about 4 years. But what was more interesting in there was that we were investing in farming assets across the world, right? Which basically meant that we were meeting entrepreneurs who were, growing stuff, and we were telling our investors that you should own productive pieces of farmland in your portfolio, because there are more people than there is food on this planet, and the value of productive farmland will always go up. But what I was looking in there, because I was on the sales side, what I was seeing there, that we're always paying a premium for investments where there is a conscious consumption angle, right? If you're investing in an apple orchard and it has fair trade certification, or if you're investing in a tea estate in Darjeeling in India, because that's the only farming assets any foreigners can own because they're plantations, we're paying a super huge premium just because of the fact that there's a conscious consumption angle. So clearly the world is moving towards conscious consumption. Things like organic fair trade weren't really a big deal back then in India, but they were in other parts of the world. The second thing that I was noticing was that every time we would talk to clients, we would pitch to them markets like Indonesia, markets like Vietnam, high demographic dividend, very young populations, loads of people, and the growth is going to be exponential. And I thought to myself, if you take 3 or 4 of these island nations together, you probably have more people in Uttar Pradesh than all of these put together. And that then led me to think that, what am I even doing here, right? The opportunity is actually back home. And then the question was that, how do we take that plunge? Yeah, comfortable life of Singapore, decent money being made, and life cut rahi hai, then why do you have to sort of Oakley mein sir kyun dena hai, as they say. But I think the entrepreneurial bug had kind of bit me, partly to do with the kind of people I was working with, very dynamic individuals, very sort of, open-minded people. And I thought that I had decided that I'm going to pack my bags and go back. And my first hire that I had made, because when you want to start a business, you need a person who can think ahead, can strategize. You need a person who can make the product, and then you need a person who's slightly more business-minded, who knows the commercials and all that, right? So if you can find these 4 or 5 things in one person, great. Otherwise, you need at least 2 or 3 people to start up with. In my case, I thought the easiest thing to to start with would be the products that my mom makes back in Mohali, right? We had a small industrial shed, which from where we still work out of in phase 9, and she was making these lotions and potions. She had an Ayush license from the Punjab Ayush department, and she was making these products. But it wasn't really, I couldn't call it a business then. It was, I think, more of a hobby. And her background is that she got 6 gold medals when she was in university here in Punjab University.
Wow.
And while we grew up, she did nothing with it, right? She did absolutely nothing with it. And when my sister and I had grown up, she decided that, okay, now I'm going to pursue my passion, which is to find the similarities between what science says and what traditional wisdom says, find those commonalities and see if that can manifest itself in some product, in a productized format, you know. So it was pure sheer passion of love for her, right, which she was doing. But at the same time, whilst I was in college and when I was dating Megha, who's now my wife and my co-founder, I would give these unlabeled bottles to her and to her friends, you know, where they would live together in a flat in Bombay, and the feedback was just amazing, right? They always said, "Yeah, where can we go buy this stuff?" And I'm like, "Nowhere. You only have to come to me," right? So whilst in Singapore, I thought, like, you know, let's go back. Maybe there is some merit in doing this, right? And the first person I had to convince was Megha, who has a background in marketing. She was actually, marketing personal care ingredients, incidentally, for an Indian company in the Southeast Asia region at the time.
Oh, wow.
Right? So as far as the product quality was concerned, I mean, I was literally preaching to the converted, because she really loved the products already. And she has a marketing background. She's been in PR. She has a management degree, unlike me. So I said, you know, let's do this together. And we packed our bags and we came back. And I think that is when the biggest challenge happens, is that people around you, you know, your relatives, your friend circle, etc. There are very few people who actually see what you're trying to do. Where a lot of people will tell you, yeah, you know, why have you come back? You know, people want to go abroad and you've come back. What's wrong with you? You know, there is a L'Oreal already. Why would people want yet another natural beauty brand? At that time, people used to say, Shahnaz Hussain, ek hi baar banta hai, it won't happen again, all that jazz, right? And all we had to do was just put our heads down and start working, right? And that's what we did. So we built the entire product portfolio from the very few basic, recipes that we had. We had to put the supply chain into place, and we wanted to manufacture the product ourselves. And I think a lot of people think I'm absolutely crazy because we do that even now. But I think that in a world which is hyper competitive like ours, in a market like that, where everybody has access to almost the same talent, the same technology, capital, right? The only thing that can actually differentiate you is the product, right? And if you can't control that, then I think you can't build a brand. That was basically clear. So everything, right? Whether it's Mulethi, whether it's neem, all of it comes from all over the country to our factory here in Mohali, and it all gets made here, right? Till date. And that's how we started. We started with a small room, and then we kept building on top of it and top of it. And, you know, usually factories have their dispatches at the ground floor. Ours is at the top floor because we were sitting on the ground floor, and then we built, you know. So a lot of people ask me that why have you built it in such an odd way? So that's the reason for it. So that's been our journey.
I want to ask you a few quick questions on Chandigarh and Mohali and this ecosystem, and how that helped you kind of grow your business. Because I do realize that there are inherent disadvantages, but if you could just pick out some of the advantages of moving to this region, of building a company here, that I think audience.
Yeah, I think the biggest advantage is that it's relatively not crowded. So, you know, like your health and your sort of, you know, so being an entrepreneur is a marathon, right? I mean, it's not a sprint. So to run a marathon, you got to survive longer, for which you need to be healthier. So I think this city allows you to do that. You can do a few things in one day. I think I would not rate that for anything else. I think the other advantage is that the cost of doing business is relatively cheaper here. The flip side is that, finding, it's a small place. A lot of kids don't want to stay here and they go out. I didn't stay here. People go out to work, to study. But now we think that's changing, because we do have a lot of people who come and join us from different cities, right? Not only people who belong here and want to come home, but people from Bangalore, people from Bombay, who want to work with the brand, who like our vision, who like what we're doing. So that has started happening now. But otherwise, great place to start up. I don't see why this shouldn't be the next startup capital.
So I read somewhere today that TCS has a top line of $25 billion, which is more than the top 100 Indian startups combined together. And TCS has a net positive cash flow of $5 billion, which is 2.5 times the total combined negative cash flow of the top 100 kind of startup players. Yeah. So where do you think, honestly, sometimes when I look at 100 crore losses, 200 crore losses, and people buying houses with of their own money that they've kind of taken out of ESOP shares in that company, and they're investing in other places while their own company is losing X amount of money, it's very difficult for us to go and explain them to kids in colleges and universities. What is your take on the entire startup thing? I mean, do you think that these just
see, I think,
what is it?
yeah, see, I think that when you are starting up, like take a business like mine, right? I mean, the odds are anyway stacked against you, when you are starting up, right? So like, you're doing something which is, it's like you're jumping off a plane and trying to build a parachute, while you are in free fall, right? That's what it is, right? And then if somebody is investing in you, they are basically hoping that you'll succeed and they'll make money off you. It's very, very simple. It's very simple, right? And so you can like, and if the expectation is that it's you want to do hyper growth, right, then there will be periods when you will say that I will sacrifice profitability to keep doubling, tripling, quadrupling my business every year, right? And it's a very conscious call that the founder or the investors are taking, right? Which is probably what you're alluding to. But there are plenty of businesses out there who don't do that, who have the financial discipline as well, right? And but the sad part is they don't get talked about that much, right?
That's what I was getting to. That
right.
There's no conversation around them.
And also, some amount of, a small loss versus a big loss, there's a lot of room in the middle, right? So painting everybody with the same brush would not be fair. So, but I think there are, I mean, even in my circle, I know a lot of founders are very conscious about the bottom line as well as the top line as well, right? It's a call, right? It's a call at the end of the day, which is decided by the board that you have, the investors, and which space you're in mentally and in your business.
Absolutely. Any advice that you want to kind of give to our guys before we switch? I mean, and these are specifically for kids who want to start up in this area, in this region. We believe that it has many advantages. You alluded to some. All our other spotlights, we ask people the same question, and more people say that Chandigarh is a cleaner, better, easier place to work. There are certain disadvantages when it comes to getting talent, but I think with everything online now, it kind of makes that slightly easier. The pain is still there. But any advice you want to give to a young entrepreneur as a startup?
Advice is simple, yeah. Don't just think and keep talking about it. Just get started, right? Just get started. That's the only advice I want to give. The only thing what I look back is that when I came back, I probably should have just not even waited that 1 year. I should have just come back earlier, right? And so just get started. That is one. And second is that there are no failures, right? There are only setbacks, right? So you have to think like a scientist. I take inspiration from my mom, right? When she's kind of making products and they don't work, right? She doesn't get frustrated or anything, right? It's a learning. So every time the experiment doesn't go well, that's a data point for you. So collect those data points, learn from it, and you'll make it happen, right? That's basically what it is.
Thank you so much, Arush. This has absolutely been fantastic. It's been an absolute fantastic experience for us, and I'm sure for the audience as well. Guys, the last sentence that we kind of had here was from the founder of Just Herbs is just start, right? So just start, go out there, get your idea, get your stuff, and just start. Thank you so much. And, first of all, I'd like to thank you from a personal basis to kind of help and build the ecosystem out here. We need entrepreneurs to kind of stay here and build the ecosystem. Otherwise, kuch bachna nahi idhar. Thank you so much, Arush. I really appreciate this. And from everyone here at the Innovation Mission Punjab, thanks a lot for doing this.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.